Hi, my name is Hridaya Sivalingam, and I'm here today to support my husband Tejas Sivalingam's write-in campaign for three-year Board of Select in Ashland, New Hampshire. I've been here all along, silent on the sidelines, but I've been watching, and I'm done being silent. I feared coming forward with my perspective because I didn't want to harm my husband or in some way further alienate my family by coming forward to his defense as his wife. But it's time for me to share my perspective. I was the driving force in our relocating to Ashland when our family was considering places to move after some time on the West Coast and in Arizona. I advocated for Ashland because before marriage I lived here, and having grown up in a town of comparable size, I was impressed with the natural beauty, quality of the school, and opportunities within a short distance for families. I recommended it without reservation and advocated that in spite of its small size, our family could expect to find receptivity here in spite of our different culture because of New Hampshire's relative openness to people being themselves. This was of concern to me because my family and I are white Hindus and have Hindu names and frequently wear the bindu, the red mark on the center of the forehead delineating the third eye. And for holidays and special occasions, we wear traditional Hindu attire. So at my recommendation, we purchased additional property here in Ashland and moved back in the summer of 2016. My husband Tejas Sivalingam was inspired early on to become involved. This is because we as a family value service and feel active engagement in our community is an important part of being residents. I observed him attending more and more meetings and engaging to learn about the workings of Ashland to find a place where he might serve. He immediately found affinity with the Water and Sewer Commissioners and later learned of open position and the Select Board. He ran for both in 2017 and was elected uncontested for both. We knew that as a newer member of the community running in an uncontested election that his support was still unclear. But he accepted the Board of Select position and we went optimistically together as a family for his swearing in at the town office. I felt happy for him to have found a place to share his talents and happy for Ashland to have found such a gem. You see, my husband is one of the most principled people that you will ever likely encounter. He knows his mind and he has a deep level of human compassion and understanding and commitment to supporting principles of engaged governance. He is also not afraid to stand alone if he sees something that he does not agree with, not afraid to advocate for fairness and equity, and not afraid to tirelessly examine issues against his principles and weigh their merits, while others may simply look at the surface or rubber stamp every initiative. Having been raised in a town of similar size, I was prepared for us to face the distrust that is common when long-term residents encounter a new person. I was prepared for some scrutiny of his motives, of our reason for being here, and of our vision for Ashland. What I was not prepared for was catching someone laughing when they saw him wearing the traditional dhoti, a traditional Hindu piece of clothing, as we prepared to attend a ceremony. I was not prepared for his response, the response when we initially wore our bindus. We heard, "What's that on your head? And make sure you wash that off before your meeting." I was not prepared for the teasing about our names and the insistence by some to not honor our custom of going by our full names. I've also encountered people judging him at face value or reacting negatively just because of how he carries himself, carrying his long-haired, bearded head high with confidence. I was definitely not prepared for the reception that he received as a member of the Board of Selectmen. My husband, perhaps due to our commitment to a culture that values personal empowerment, and because of his lengthy study and exploration of political movements and community empowering principles, understandably brought some new and unique perspectives to the board. He consistently evaluates policy and budgetary decisions from a lens of how more people could be involved and how more input could be sought and how we could curb growing expenditures and taxes. He consistently advocates for the importance, especially in a geographically small town, for great care with our ecosystems and our natural resources. He continually assesses the vision for economic development from a lens of how we can set ourselves up as a community to develop in ways that are sustainable and to allow local residents to continue to still live here. His out there ideas include thinking less about how to attract big external corporations to come here and pay our local people a minimum wage, and more about how we could build and grow using our own local talents and encourage worker-owned, worker-managed development. Local worker-owned, worker-managed businesses would mean that work is more secure because locals won't uproot and outsource as readily. and profits will stay local and benefit people that work versus benefiting a few executives. His campaign slogan, "Serve people, not power," reflects this by not valuing the power position of select board over or other leadership as somehow entitling one to dismiss the richness and delightful messiness of having multiple voices at the table. It's about not being afraid to confront those in power when they fail in their duty to be dedicated to the public, even if it seems challenging or likely to result in negative favor. These principles and others he's advocated for are well-grounded and have the potential to support Ashland in being a unique and self-sustaining, vibrant community focused and fueled by local talent and focused on increasing the quality of life for its residents instead of just becoming a weekend vacation center that's reliant entirely on tourist income. Far from crazy, as some have attempted to paint his perspectives, reflection and time will reveal that given the political uncertainty and challenges facing our country, there is great wisdom in finding local, sustainable solutions. These perspectives may be new to some and understandably would invite dialogue, but what has been difficult for me to understand and painful to watch is how members of the board and some members of the public attending meetings have found it necessary not just to question his ideas, but to scoff before really listening and to dismiss out of hand rather than ask questions. When he had the courage to bring forward concerns that were brought to him by members of the community related to an appearance of a conflict of interest involving current leadership, he was met with outrage and called a terrorist by a member of the community. When this very wise and meticulous scholar, whose writing is sought after in many other circles, spent hours creating a compassionately grounded ethics policy to contribute to related dialogue, it was dismissed out of hand by those who I'm not even clear fully read it, with language suggesting he was a terrible writer who could not form a comprehensible thought. Members of the board and audience joined in a joke that new police tasers should be tested on him. Members of the audience regularly scoffed when they disagreed, and board members who had the quorum to vote down ideas they didn't like still found it necessary to add personal injury to policy disagreements. Sweeping and inaccurate assumptions about intent and malice have been attached to a simple question he asked to an appointee in his subsequent vote. No attention was given to how board leadership reacted and consequently framed the dialogue by sending the message even before the appointee had the opportunity to respond that having a question was ridiculous and offensive. No attention was given to the merits of having someone on the board willing to review all appointees equitably, irrespective of their social position or power. The accusation of slander and overall reaction was deaf to his assertions that the appointee had a commendable service record and that she would bring her best to the ZBA. Voting against someone is a policy decision, not a personal one, and people requesting appointments should be prepared to engage policy differences, as I believe this appointee was. Review the meetings and you'll note that whenever there was even a hint of personal interest or conflict, my husband consistently recused himself, even when the appointee was his friend and his vote could be of benefit. Attacking someone personally for a policy difference is presently common in our national scene, but I would hope we would aspire to do better within our community. Intolerance to differences is also common nationally, but personally I hope that we can elect a board who can more respectfully engage difference rather than sending a bullying message of vote with us or we'll make sure that you pay, even if we still get what we want as a majority. If you're scratching your head about a vote, refer to the principles I discussed earlier, and I'm confident you'll find grounding and not randomness. That is, if you ask yourself, how does this initiative, suggestion, warrant article, or vote effort to assure that as many people as possible are involved in decisions and power is redistributed back to those who are impacted by it, and you will likely find your answer. Think what you may about his resignation, but also consider it's common for elected officials to clutch to their power or position, whether or not they perceive still being wanted. It takes principle and courage to withdraw from bullying and to recall oneself when all signs point to lacking public support, and invite people to vote again to affirm or withdraw their support. Even this act reflects the principles outlined above, that power to make choices should remain in the hands of the people. One thing his resignation should not reflect upon is his commitment. I venture to say that Ashland hasn't encountered a public servant in recent history who has spent more hours studying the law, attending trainings, engaging in meetings, reviewing agendas, meeting members of departments, researching issues, and responding to inquiries. You can ask anyone at the town office who called the most, who asked the most questions, who arrived first to pick up their information to prepare for meetings, who reviewed the manifest most thoroughly, who read everything before signing it, and read every contract, and am confident that their answers will not be the status quo incumbents, but my husband. So even at this juncture, with a name like Teja Singha, we face an almost humorously impractical write-in campaign. And we do so with grace and principle. Simply put, if you don't want him back, we'll hear you. But hear me, you'll be missing out.